Oldham County Fiscal Court. I'm Judge Executive David Vogel. Happy to have you here today for our meeting, and this is the 17th day of September 2019. Right, we don't want to push it any faster than we have to. If you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please turn all cell phones to off or vibrate. And I'll ask our clerk, Sheila Fair, to call the roll.
Magistrate Likens.
Here.
Magistrate Tice.
Here.
Magistrate Harrison. Here. Magistrate Greenwell.
Here.
Magistrate Hounds.
Here.
Magistrate Hawkins. Here. Magistrate Dye.
Here.
Magistrate Logston.
Here.
Judge Vogel.
Here. Having all members of the fiscal court present, this meeting is now in session. Your motion to accept the agenda. Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll ask Sheila to please read the minutes from our last meeting, and that was on August 30th.
August 30th, 2019. The Oldham County Fiscal Court convened at a special meeting at 1 p.m. with Judge Executive David Vogel, County Attorney John Carter, and the following magistrates in attendance: Brent Likens, Wayne Tice, Albert Harrison, Steve Greenwell, Chris Hounds, Stephanie Hawkins, Bob Dye, and Michael Logston. Motion made by Magistrate Hounds and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to approve the agenda, removing Bravura contract. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Logston, seconded by Magistrate Hounds to approve the meeting minutes from August 20th. Motion carried 8-0-1. Magistrate Likens abstained. Karen Greenwell announced City Place is hosting a free public concert featuring the Louisville Orchestra at the City Place Pavilion Friday, September 6th at 7:45. Bid openings for dump trucks. The following bids for 2 tandem dump trucks with snowplow and spreader capabilities were opened and read aloud for the record. Ewell Truck Sales, $135,393.04 per unit. Kentucky Truck Sales, $127,999 each. Wayne Supply, $145,929 each. And Kentucky Freightliner Trucks, $260,781. Payables. Motion made by Magistrate Logston, seconded by Magistrate Likens to approve the payables. Motion carried unanimously. Public hearing for the 2019 county tax rate. Judge Vogel presented for public hearing the proposed county tax rate for 2019 of 8.7 cents per $100 assessed property value and opened the floor to public comment. Hearing no public comment, the public hearing was closed. Motion made by Magistrate Dye, seconded by Magistrate Hounds to authorize the Judge Executive to sign resolution number 0108-3019 adopting the tax rate for 2019 of 8.7 cents per $100 assessed property value. Motion carried unanimously. First reading, revisions to the comprehensive zoning ordinance. Director of Planning and Development, Jim Urban, presented for first reading proposed ordinance KOC 19-920-11, repealing and replacing certain sections of the existing Oldham County comprehensive zoning ordinance. The second reading public hearing will be September 17th at 2. Committee recommendations and reports. Bond release, erosion control bond for Rocket Man South Rocket Storage. Motion made by Magistrate Harrison, seconded by Magistrate Tice, upon the recommendation of the county engineer to release the following erosion control bonds for Rocket Man South Rocket Storage Phases 1, 2, and 3. $15,600 bond for Phases 1 and 2, and $17,000 bond for Phase 3, totaling $32,600. Motion carried unanimously. Highway Safety Grant Acceptance. Motion made by Magistrate Hounds, seconded by Magistrate Logston, to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the grant agreement with KYTC Office of Highway Safety relating to its 2019-20 Traffic Safety Grant for enforcement of seatbelt and DUI laws as well as special events. Motion carried unanimously. Personnel actions. Animal control. Motion made by Magistrate Logston, seconded by Magistrate Dye, to accept the resignation of Matt Furnish effective 8/25/19. Motion carried unanimously. Road Department. Motion made by Magistrate Hounds and seconded by Magistrate Logston to hire Randall Kelly as Equipment Operator 1 at $13.50 an hour effective 9/3/19. Motion carried unanimously. Bid award for the dump truck. The dump truck bid award will not be awarded today. Bids will be forwarded to the Road Committee for its review and recommendation. Public comment. Jim Urban announced upcoming open house style meetings between 5:30 and 7:30 to discuss proposed updates to the county's comprehensive plan, which is required every 5 years. Meetings are scheduled for September 17th at South Oldham Fire Station 1, September 18th at LaGrange Fire Station 1, and September 26th at North Oldham High School. Announcements. Magistrate Likens wished everyone a safe Labor Day. He stated the Rivera contract removed from today's agenda will come back before the court once the Buildings Committee and the Parks Committee have reviewed. He commended the county's Building and Inspections Department for timely inspections. Magistrate Harrison announced the 1488 Bridge project is delayed until October. September 17th is U.S. Air Force Day. Magistrate Greenwell stated, as a bus driver for Oldham County, he has seen firsthand the SRO's interaction with the students, parents, and faculty, and fully supports the program. Magistrate Hound stated he and Fiscal Court members attended a DLG conference the last couple days. He encourages everyone to exercise their right to vote. He thanked Roads Director Wes Williams and his crew for fixing a particular drainage issue. He stated how important the upcoming census is, encourages all to participate, and that census jobs are available. Magistrate Dye reminds the community to keep valuables out of sight when inside vehicles. Deputy Judge Executive Kevin Nuss shared information about the next census. Registration begins April 1st, 2020. He invited magistrates to attend the next Complete Count Committee meeting Wednesday, September 11th at 1 p.m. to learn how to promote the census within their own districts. Motion made by Magistrate Likens and seconded by Magistrate Dye to adjourn the meeting. Motion carried unanimously, and the meeting adjourned at 1:47 p.m.
You've heard the reading of our minutes from August 30th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Are there any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or noes? Not hearing any. All right, if you were listening closely, you may have heard Sheila mention that today, September 17th, is U.S. Air Force Day. As a former member of the Air Force, I couldn't let that go by. Certainly, it's been quite a few years ago, 40 plus or so, I guess, since I've been in the Air Force. But I very much enjoyed my service and encourage anyone within the sound of my voice who is considering military service to consider the Air Force very seriously. It was a great place to serve, wonderful people, and it's a great opportunity to see many parts of the world if you happen to be a person who is able to have what they call MOS, or used to call MOS. That's a job specialty that requires you to be in some other part of the world. So congratulations to all members of the Air Force, and thank you to all veterans and members of our military service. Time now for public comment. Time during our meeting when anyone who'd like to address the fiscal court is able to do so. And the first person here will be Becky Zockline.
Thank you, Judge. Today, I would like to remind our community that our annual shredding event is coming up this Saturday at the fairgrounds. It will be in the morning, starting at 9 o'clock, and it will go till 12 or until the truck is full, whichever comes first. So I encourage folks to take part in this event. It's a great way to get rid of sensitive documents, and please be careful with what you bring. Make sure it is only paper, and that items that don't belong aren't in there. So we welcome everybody to that event.
Right, and this is limited to residential shredding. The businesses are not invited to bring their accumulated files from years ago and have them shredded, so we can't do that. So.
Thank you for that reminder, Judge.
We do thank the Paper Predator, was that who it is?
It is the Paper Predator. They're a nearby business that does paper shredding, and they've served the county as well. And so we
thank them for
folks to-
providing their service at no charge.
Right, this is at no charge. Also, on this Saturday, we're having what's called a Leaders Don't Litter event, a Dash for Trash, and we'll be spending an hour at Wendell Moore Park picking up trash, and we're looking for community volunteers of all ages to come out and clean up Wendell Moore Park.
All right.
Right. Thank
We
you.
should call it a trash treasure hunt or something. I mean, the park is not, is kept nice, but we can always use more.
This is true. And this is also in honor of World Cleanup Day, which is Saturday. And by default, it's also National Cleanup Day. So
Great.
we want to recognize that we're joining in an activity that's global. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to address the fiscal court? Jailer Mike Simpson.
Hey, Judge, thank you. Just would be a quick moment. Wanted to come today to talk about another particular event that's going to take place in our county. I'm actually currently the president-elect of LaGrange Rotary, and part of that person's job is to organize and get guest speakers to come and speak to our club. And sometimes you stumble upon a jewel or a diamond to get somebody to come, that we've now turned in our guest speaker for October the 8th. Actually, we've turned it into a nighttime event. We'll be at the John Black Center, and our guest speaker will be none other than the Hall of Fame retiring Marty Brenneman. So to be able to get Marty Brenneman, if you're a baseball fan, obviously you should know who that is, and if you're a Cincinnati Reds fan, obviously you better know who that is, because this one belongs to the Reds. That's his famous saying. So I have a ticket, what basically the nighttime event, and I know Magistrate Tice's wife has really helped out tremendously, and Wayne himself, to be able to get them to come, him and his wife, to come for this event. It's going to be now a combination fundraiser for LaGrange Rotary. Doors will open up about 5:45. We're going to have some food. We're going to have a cash bar there, and around 7 o'clock, Marty will take the mic. So you have about an hour and 15 minutes to be able to meet this person, and again, to be able to talk about the Big Red Machine, the history of the Cincinnati Reds, and have him and his wife here. It's pretty phenomenal. Tickets are $25. I think that's pretty reasonable. You're going to get some food. We're going to have some door prizes. We're going to have some silent auction items. And actually, a week from today, as a promotion, his last two games that he will be involved as announcing for the Cincinnati Reds, one of them is a week from today. They're going to be giving away for the first 20,000 people at Cincinnati Park, Great American Park, replica of the very first ticket of the very first game that he called. And a week from Thursday, which will be his last official calling for the Cincinnati Reds, first 20,000 people get a transistor radio, old school, with the headphone, and to listen to him call his very last game.
Huh.
Those items, because I've got 4 and 4, I got 4 tickets for both of those, will be part of some of our silent auction items. So I just encourage you, if anybody needs a ticket, they can call me at my work, and I'll give out my work number. It's 222-3500. So if you're a big Reds fan and you want to come see this gentleman, if it's on your bucket list or if it's not, you get one opportunity to meet a Hall of Famer like this. So thank you, Judge, for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Mike. Good luck with that fundraiser.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to address the fiscal court? All right.
Thank you, Judge. Magistrate Sheila. My name is Tom McIntyre. I'm the senior planner with Oldham County Planning and Development, and I'm here to invite you all to our open house style meeting to discuss the updates to the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan. Per KRS Chapter 100, we are required every 5 years to update our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is composed of goals and objectives and a future land use map. We have roughly 88 goals and objectives that help create our future land use map. And we're going to use these meetings to reach out to the community and to elected officials and appointed officials to help us get feedback for the next 2019 update. Like Judge Vogel had mentioned earlier, our meetings are from 5:30 to 7:30 tonight at South Oldham Fire, same time tomorrow at LaGrange Fire, and then the same time next Thursday at North Oldham High School. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else who would like to address fiscal court at this point? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment and go on to the first item on their agenda today. Michelle Ellison from the Census Bureau had intended to be here, but has been inconvenienced by something. But I do have a good substitute, Kevin Nuss, who has been spearheading our drive for a complete count of Oldham County in the census coming up next year. Can't begin to emphasize how important it is for everyone to make sure they are counted in the census. It's of strategic importance to our county. So Kevin, proceed.
Thank you. I'll be.
Judge, could we ask Kevin to make his presentation with the same level of energy that Michelle does?
Well, yeah.
Does anybody have a Mountain Dew or something I can drink real quick? Michelle is very dynamic. If you've not had the opportunity to meet her, she is a very passionate person about the census, and she's a very valuable member of not only the U.S. Census Bureau, but our complete count committee that we have as well. And she passes her regrets that she couldn't make it today. She wanted to be here because not only is today Air Force Day, it's also Constitution Day, and this is Constitution Week in the United States. So I'm just going to provide a brief update on the census, where we're at, what's going on in Oldham County, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. So today is Constitution Day, and for those of you, we'll take a little history class here on civics. On February 29th, 1952, Congress designated September 17th as Constitution Day. This day commemorates the signing of the U.S. Constitution on September 17, 1787. The census is also written into the Constitution. Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution prescribes that a count of the U.S. population shall be done every 10 years. The next census is obviously conducted in the spring of 2020. As today is Constitution Day and Constitution Week, Judge Vogel kindly signed a proclamation issuing his proclamation that today is Constitution Week in Oldham County, September 17th through the 23rd. Governor Bevin has also introduced a similar proclamation for the state. Where we're at in Oldham County right now, there are actually census workers in the county conducting field work. We'll talk about jobs in a minute, but they're always, they're out right now through mid-October. I know we've had a lot of issues in neighborhoods with our peddler's ordinance and people coming to your door and not being invited and not being wanted. Federal law mandates that census workers are allowed to come, whether you have a peddler's ordinance or you have any prohibition against peddling or not in your neighborhood, because they're not peddling any goods or services. Right now, the workers will be here through mid-October to late October, and they are strictly doing address canvassing. They may knock on a door to verify that somebody actually lives in the address, lives in that residence. If they go to a residence and it doesn't look like it's occupied, or they have a question as to whether it's a valid address, they may knock on the door just to make sure that there is someone there. They will not ask any personal questions at all. Census Bureau will never ask for a date of birth or a social security number or any personal information. This is a replica of the ID badge that they must wear on their body when they are out working. It has the U.S. Department of Commerce logo at the top. It has a watermark, and it has an expiration date. If anyone has any questions about a census worker or somebody coming to their door posing as a census worker, if they don't have this identification, then they are in violation of their own policy, and anyone can contact me or the Census Bureau, and we'll make sure that they get notified about that. So this year, with the 2020 census, for the first time ever, there are 3 brand new ways to take the census. You can do it online, by mail, or by phone. It used to be just by the census worker coming to your door, or you could mail in the old application. But for the first time ever, they have online applications this year, or online responses this year. So beginning somewhere around April 1st, that's declared National Census Day, April 1st, they will begin having the availability online for you to take the census. If you don't have access to the internet at your residence, we're going to have areas in the county. I know Ms. Jessica Powell is here with the library. They're going to have computers at the library for you to use. We're working with our fire departments. They're going to have areas for you to use. We may have a place here in the courthouse in different locations, but we will make it as accessible as possible for folks to do this online, because that's probably the easiest and quickest way. If you don't have access to it online, you can call the census. There'll be a number you can call, and they will ask you the questions over the phone. Again, they will not ask you any identifying information, any personal information, or you can mail your census in. And if you haven't done any of that by mid-May of 2020, then a census worker will come and knock on your door and try to complete the census that way. So if you don't want to be bothered by the census workers, then we urge you to either go online or call it in or mail it in before that date. There's an official quilt for the 2020 census. On the left is the quilt of the 120 counties in Kentucky that have it. This quilt was unveiled yesterday at the National Quilt Museum in Paducah, Kentucky, yesterday afternoon. The Oldham County logo is on the right, and this logo was done by the Kentucky Extension Homeowners Association. The quilt patch for Oldham County was done by a local resident. It's a member of the Kentucky Extension Homeowners Association. It's a very fitting tribute to Oldham County to have a train in our patch. And for those that can't see it, our patch is right there. I would like to show just a very quick, this is why the census matters, why you should fill it out. This is less than a 1-minute PSA, so if it cooperates, we will.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 2 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire, and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
Okay, as you heard, road funds, schools, congressional districts, they're all formed by the census. There's $675 billion that come to local communities every 10 years because of the census. In Kentucky, the number fluctuates, but a study at George Washington University said that I'm going to use an average of about $2,000 per person is what they figure for people who fill out the census. So there's a lot of money at stake. A lot of, if we want road projects done or redistricting of our congressional offices and representatives. But one of the most important reasons to do the census and to remember is children. The most undercounted age group of the census is children from birth to 5 years old. And if you don't count those small kids in this census, they're not counted again for 10 more years. Those kids are already getting ready to go into middle school, and schools haven't accounted for that population. So I know I have a 14-month-old grandson that I probably, before I became the complete count committee chair, I probably wouldn't have thought to add him to the census, and because he lives in my household. So it's very important. If I don't count him this year, he'll be 11 years old. Next time the census comes around, he's already in school, and they haven't accounted for him. If you want more information about the census, you can go to www.census.gov. The census is still hiring. If you go to census.gov/jobs, there's jobs both at the National Processing Center, which is right across the East End Bridge over in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and we're also looking for census workers here in Oldham County. We're about 70% of what we need for census workers in Oldham County. I know the unemployment rate in Oldham County is very low, and that's great, but it also makes other agencies who are struggling to find positions to fill. But this is a part-time position. You can work nights, weekends, whenever you want, whenever it's convenient for you. They'll give you an iPad. You don't work out of your house, but you work from home, meaning your office is your home. You can do some work there, but you'll have to go out into the field and do some preliminary work before the census starts. And then once May gets here, they'll need people to go knock on doors to be an enumerator for folks who have not completed their census information at that time. I know that was quick, but I'm glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
Measure Likens.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you tell us what county in the state of Kentucky was the first to set up a complete count committee?
I believe that would be by Judge Executive David Vogel's executive order, Oldham County.
Thank you.
Nice of you to say it that way. Measure Die.
When can people start going online?
April 1st is considered National Census Day, so as it gets closer, they're kind of gearing it towards March Madness. Coach Calipari with UK has already done a PSA. They're working on Coach Mack with U of L, and they're also working on some other coach in Northern Kentucky and a couple other college coaches to get some PSAs out. But basically, right around the time March Madness comes, is April 1st is considered the Census Day, and that's when the online activity is supposed to begin.
So this is the second thing you're supposed to do in April for the federal government, correct? All right, thank you.
Measure Harrison.
Thank you, Judge. Kevin, you've heard me say this before, but I cannot think of a single initiative that members on this court could get involved in that is even close to being of the level of importance that this is. And we're the people that should know our district, know the people in our district better than anybody else does, and I hope we will get fully engaged in this and help in every way we can to promote it, because it's huge. Just do the numbers yourself, and it boggles the mind how much money we could lose. We don't really lose it, we just don't get it, which is the same as losing it. You did the positive things, at $2,000 roughly in value for every person who does it, and consequently, we can lose, not have that much for everybody who does not sign up. So get in touch with your churches, schools. We're working to bring the program to the Spanish-speaking community in Oldham County. There is no threat. There's no citizenship issue on the question. The information is more closely guarded than the gold at Fort Knox. So there's really no downside to it. It's all upside.
We are meeting monthly with our Complete Count Committee. I will continue to invite you, and as we're getting the fire departments involved, because they're in each of your districts in the county, you do know as Magistrate Harrison just said, you know your constituents better than anybody. There is a trust factor there with some members of the population and the government, but hopefully we can break through that with our ministers. I'm going to a ministerial association meeting in a couple weeks to try to get more churches involved in this as well. Emergency responders have a good relationship most of the time with all different varieties of residents, so we want to get as many people engaged as we can to get as complete a count as we can, quite honestly.
Measure Hounds.
When's the next meeting, Kevin? October what?
It will be the second Wednesday in October. I don't have the date in front of me right now.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. We're going to take just a short break in the meeting here now. We've got a technical issue to correct if we can. We'll have that done in just a second. Might mention that while we're working on that some time ago, I happened to run across some old census figures and looked up the town I came from originally, and I believe the census was taken in the 1840s or 1850s, and found some of my great-great-great-grandparents, and how many kids were in the household and how many horses they had, and it was really quite interesting. And so all of us will be part of those same types of numbers, 150 years from now, that someone else may be looking up to see who we were and what we were about. So we hope that we can get out and gather up all the census data in the county, just like when your mother used to make pudding. I don't know if anybody makes pudding anymore. I haven't heard of it for a while. Counted for our census, get everybody, so.
We will actually be hosting the census quilt at the library, so you can see some of the beautiful handiwork.
Okay, well, right, that, come up, this is our librarian, and,
We will be hosting that beautiful census quilt at the library. Quilting is a large part of our folk tradition in the state of Kentucky. All of you know the museum in Paducah, so we're really honored to have part of that as it travels throughout the state.
okay, great, thank you.
Judge, I mentioned Michelle earlier. She's already got plans for her son to go out trick-or-treating on Halloween dressed as a count.
Oh, really? Like that. Well, that's cute. I mean, we'll all need to be able to do that. What we're trying to fix is that something happened to our recording system here, that anything presented from the podium is, any graphic presented is not showing up on our recording here, so it's just a malfunction between our first and second speakers, so we don't know why, but I think Sheila and Jay are trying to get it corrected in the other room, so.
People live up through here.
Our recording system has been operating here for,
Conservation.
I'd say 17 or 18 years, something like that, quite a while. We've been fortunate to have it hang together that long.
Here's Bob's house.
And
17 this October.
17 this October, right.
But Judge, I think it's to be expected. You just got the microphones
I think
fixed.
it's on the.
Yeah, yes, right.
Right on cue.
Right. One thing gets fixed, something else breaks. Right. Is it working?
Nope, not yet.
Right here.
Yeah, all right.
The one that you got, the one on the gravel and shits underneath the interstate, that you all left. Yeah.
Well, the wind's blowing that way, so it'll blow the mold away from you.
Yep, I told him in the meeting. I live closer, but it's still.
Mold will be going that way.
I don't care.
We may not be able to get it fixed here.
Place here would be conservation for a while.
Whose is that one? Thirty Harris?
No, right here is right here.
No, that's, Williams.
And that's not even mine over here.
Well,
No, it's 329.
You don't go past 329?
I used to call it up to here. Where are you at?
All this.
fine. Yeah, you could do that. Sure, while we're recording, aren't we? Or are we not? We're not recording right now. Okay, all right.
The future land use map. What you have in your hands, the magistrates do, is their magisterial district boundaries, a copy of the existing future land use map. Tom stood up here earlier during public comment and talked about these public meetings that we're kicking off, receiving information regarding goals, objectives, and the idea behind these maps is to go ahead and just review them. Again, that's the existing future land use map, not to be confused with existing zoning. So if you have any comments, you look at a particular area, you think that the future land use might be different than what's on that current map, that's part of the update to the comprehensive plan. So.
You want us to report any errors to you?
Sorry?
Any errors on the map? There's some errors on here.
Yes, yeah. Magistrate Logsdon pointed out that we have a couple areas that show single-family subdivisions as single-family, but then we have a blue that's, it's already residential, but we classify it differently. So if there's a comment, if it's just a question, anything that you have regarding that map as we go along over the next several months. And then ultimately, when all of this process is done in 6 or so months, we'll be asking you to approve a new future land use map as part of the comprehensive plan.
Would it be appropriate at some point in time to have the person generating these maps to come in here and be recognized by the court, like Matt?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Absolutely.
not sure everybody really knows who he is and what he does, but this is great.
Sure. And he's working with Tom. Tom and Matt are working together to set all this stuff up in terms of the mapping. So, yeah, I can have him come up sometime.
Legend up here. Where do we go to find out what those?
Question that Magistrate Tice is asking is, there's a legend on your map, and what is the definition of those items in the legend? If you go to our website, in the current comprehensive plan, there's a listing of all of those. We can actually, it's a good question, we could just print those on 8.5 by 11 and give them to you. We'll send them out either by email or. Well, but what he's asking is, what's the definition of those? So there is, we do have a printout that has the definition, so it's not just the legend itself, it's what the descriptor is. Mhm. Yeah, we'll send that out.
Pardon?
Thank you.
I think we'll be able to resume the meeting in just a moment. I think we're operational here. Thank you. Ready?
It's recording.
All right, thank you very much. Sheila got that fixed, and
Judge, I make a
Amy
motion.
and Jay, thank you. We'll go on now to our payables, item A under county administration.
Judge, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right. Question?
What are we doing?
We're,
Tables.
we've got the payables here.
Oh, we're gonna withdraw one.
Uh-huh, go ahead.
I'd like to withdraw one from Mike Whalen Electric in the amount of $5,020.42 for further clarification.
Second.
All right.
What page is that on?
It's on page 7, about 2/3 of the way down.
Judge, I don't know directly what that is, but I know what it's about. It's a temporary service we put in for the food truck.
We just need better breakdown as to what it is.
Gotcha.
All right, motion been made to approve the payables with the amendment to withdraw the bill from Whalen Electric. Are there any other comments? Was that seconded?
I second.
All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item now is, we're going to have a couple of public hearings here today. The first public hearing has to do with a revision to the comprehensive zoning ordinance. Amy Alvey.
Good afternoon, Amy Alvey with Oldham County Planning and Development Services. As Judge Vogel said, this is the second reading and public hearing for KOC 19920-11. This is an ordinance repealing and replacing certain sections of the previous ordinance, KOC 19-925-49, in relation to the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, which was approved by Oldham County Fiscal Court on August 6th of 2019. There are 4 affected sections. The sections that are listed in the ordinance as well as on the screen, which is section 020, which is the AG1 Agricultural District Property Development Regulations regarding conditional uses. Section 25320, brew pubs and barrel warehouses. Section 260-460, conditional use standards for barrel warehouses, and Section 290-150, signs along scenic corridors. So what we'll start with first is the removal of section 260, 460. We are proposing to remove barrel warehouses as a conditional use permit, which would have required a public hearing and approval by the appropriate Board of Adjustments in AG1 zoning district. So previously, the regulation was if someone had a property that is currently zoned AG1, they could apply for a conditional use permit to have a barrel warehouse located on their property. So this portion is being removed. So it is read and struck through. Secondly, they're proposing to add language requiring barrel warehouses if is located in AG2, which again, currently Oldham County has no property that is zoned AG2, so it would require a zoning change. And also that a distillery on site is required and it be open for tours. Also, maximum size of barrel warehouses would be based off 5 years of the production of the distillery that is located on that same tract of land. So you'll see added here items number 1 and number 2 under Division 253.20. Again, it states barrel warehouses shall only be permitted when associated with a distillery operation located on the same tract of land which is open for tours a minimum of 4 days per week with 1 day being a weekend. And item number 2, maximum size of the warehouse cannot exceed the following. It's barrels per warehouse equals annual production times 5 years. So, and then it just renumbered the other items there, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is a chart that we previously had used. This is just updated to show there is nothing that would allow for a conditional use permit for any type of barrel warehouse right here. So you'll see that they are a permitted use again in I-1 and I-2, which they currently are right now in the current regulations, even prior to August 6th. And again, AG2 requires a zoning change, would go to the legislative body, and they would be allowed as a permitted use there. Do you want me to go through the other one and then open it up for discussion, Judge? Or you wanna discuss
No.
this part
You mean the
first?
comprehensive plan?
There's 2 items. There's barrel warehouses and there's one small amendment to the sign regulations.
Okay, do them both, please.
Okay. The second one is, we're proposing to add language to section 290, 150, signs along scenic corridors, item 1C, stating that wall signs shall not be located within 300 feet of the nearest travel lane of Interstate 71. This is not a building in Oldham County. This is just a building I found off the internet. So if this property was adjacent to I-71 or within 300 feet, this is an example of a sign that would not be allowed to face I-71. So the current regulation you'll see under item 1C here, we are just adding or wall signs. So the regulation will read, no freestanding signs, banners, or wall signs shall be located within 300 feet of the center of the nearest travel lane of Interstate 71.
All right.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, and at this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone who's come here today to speak in favor or in opposition to either of these changes. If there is, would you please stand? All right. You come speak in favor or in opposition?
In opposition.
All right, then you come forward, and I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the entire truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, go ahead and state your name and address and be able to make your comments in opposition.
Kim Hides, Director of Tourism for Oldham County, 7204-329 Crestwood. I'm not sure really if it's in opposition of, but I would like to state that we as tourism maintain that we, as far as barrel storage, would like to have the caveat in there that distilleries would not have to build a distillery necessarily, that they could attach a different tourism-related project to the building of barrel warehouses and not necessarily have to build a full-on distillery in the county. So I just want to make that as part of the record, that we still would like to see that and encourage an increase in tourism, not necessarily an attraction of distilleries.
Are you suggesting something like a retail store or?
Not necessarily a museum or a huge amphitheater where we can do outdoor entertainment, outdoor concerts, and invite tourists in, promote overnight stays in our hotels, because at the end of the day, tourism in the county is funded solely by the transient room tax. So if people don't come and spend the night, we have no budget. And in a community our size, we're limited to the number of hotels that we're able to attract in the county. If our occupancy is low, we're not going to increase tourism. Our tourism budget is not going to increase any. There might be taxes on barrels and barrel warehouse storage. Other than that, there is no tourism aspect to barrel warehouses. So we would just like to see that we brought that up. I don't know if you call it a caveat or what, but we would like to see barrel storage be used as a way to grow tourism in the county, because we're limited on what we can do to grow tourism in the county. And we see that as a way that wouldn't require somebody to spend millions of dollars building a distillery. They could do something that we need as a community and attach their name to it. No difference than another corporate partner that we have, a Baptist or a Rawlings, who is willing to build something like City Place for the community. We think a distillery could do the same thing for tourism as we look to other communities to do, other corporations to do.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to these changes or proposed changes? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposed changes? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment and go on to the members of the fiscal court. Is there a motion to accept the proposed changes?
Judge, I have another motion,
All right,
if it might be allowed. I move we reject the proposed amendment in its entirety and readopt the original recommendation of the Planning Commission that was made subsequent to the earlier recommendation by the Study and Review Committee.
is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, the motion dies for a second. Is there anyone who would like to make a recommendation that the proposed change be accepted? Mr. Greenwell.
Judge, I make a motion that we accept the approved changes that were presented to us today.
I'll make that second.
All right. Moved and seconded that the proposed changes to the county zoning ordinance involving barrel warehouses and signs would be accepted. Is there any further discussion about that? Magistrate Dye.
On the signs, in other words, if anyone's out there now, they're going to be grandfathered in, correct? It has a
Yes,
sign
right.
within 300
Yeah.
feet. Was, which I'm not good about distances and all that, but did anyone think this through on the 300 feet? Maybe it will, maybe it won't affect the buildings that may be on the Oda property? Or any buildings along Commerce Parkway?
All right, Mr. Urban.
So if you put it for perspective, anybody that knows how long a football field is, when you stand at one end looking at the other, it's 300 feet is a football field. There are, I think, a limited amount of properties in Oldham Reserve that would be within that, simply
Right.
because there's also the New Moody Lane right-of-way.
Correct.
So I think if anything, there's only one lot where that has a potential.
About on Commerce?
That, I think, is part of what the recommendation was, that we do have some properties that back up to I-71, and that they're, as long as they're further than 300 feet from the travel lane.
So like, other words, if the building faced Commerce and it was a big enough building, they wanted to put a sign on the back, but it could be within 300 feet.
That's correct.
The center line of the, okay, all right, thank you.
Magistrate Logson.
On the signs, what about vandalism or act of God?
In terms of replacement,
No, yes, because if there's something happens to a sign, tornado blows through, or somebody doesn't want the sign there anymore, so they vandalize it, so you can't put it back up.
well, anytime a sign is damaged, we allow it to be replaced just as a matter of course, in kind. In other words, it's the same size and location. If they're going to change either size or location, it has to comply with the regulations.
Magistrate Harrison.
Follow up on the signs. This is a distance from the center line of,
The center line of the nearest travel lane.
so when the road gets widened and improved, where does the center line go?
Moves with it. Well, in the case of I-71, though, the widening is going to be on the interior lanes. So it won't be widened towards the outside of the right-of-way. It'll be towards the middle of in between the north and south travel lanes.
I'm not familiar with any regulation like this. It's not determined by the right-of-way, not the road itself. Isn't this really unusual to say center line of a road?
Well, it somewhat mimics the state's requirements. I think theirs is 1,500 feet from the center line of the travel lane, so we're just really using what they've already established throughout the state along interstates.
I don't think that's what Lady Bird had in mind.
It is not, but Kentucky and Scenic Kentucky worked with the State Transportation Cabinet to put their own regulations in place for the state of Kentucky.
Thank you.
Magistrate Tice.
In our planning and zoning right now, if I'm correct, or where it was before came from the study review, there was no freestanding signs or banners. The only thing that was already in there. The only thing we've done is added the wall signs.
That's correct.
Which gives you a setback from right there on the fence of I-71, or that potential. And I think that cleans up the possibility of having a lot of just signs nailed on the back of a building. And I'm in support of it because of that.
Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Pardon?
I have a question for Mr. Carter.
Yes.
I had earlier asked about ex parte communication, and I think I understood what you said, but I would like to hear it again, what it consists of and how it occurs. My example would be if we had members of the court on a regular basis attending meetings of the Study and Review Committee and participating in their discussion, asking questions and making recommendations. Is that considered to be ex parte?
Not in my opinion.
Because they're privy to communications that the rest of the body is not?
No.
Well, could you tell me what ex parte is then?
It's when you ex parte somebody on the court as to a vote as to a particular item.
I didn't understand that. Well, my point is, we've got three of my colleagues up here pushing this amendment, and all three of them in the last 15 months have been regular attendees at the Study and Review Committee and have voiced their opinions on numerous issues, asked questions, and made it well known how they felt about certain things. And for whatever reason, most of what they felt and opined on were not accepted by the Study and Review Committee, consequently not by the Planning Commission. So after having a bite of the apple that didn't taste too good, they've come back to us for another bite of the apple. The first time this was proposed to us, we voted it down, which left another bad taste, and now they've come back for a third bite of the apple with this proposed amendment, and frankly, I agree with the staff of the Planning Commission. I'm worn out with it. We've got a Planning Commission of very skilled, capable, experienced people. The Study Review Committee is composed of members of the Planning Commission that have in excess of 80 years' experience as a planning commissioner. And yet we sit here thinking we know more than they do and we know what's better, and they don't. To me, it's a slap in the face to those fine people for the efforts they put into this. They don't get paid. I think they get $90 a month. Has that been raised? It's 100. Wow. Right. Well, perhaps Jim or Amy can tell me how many hours and/or meetings were involved in this. Just the warehouses, because I've got it going back at least into early 18, if not the end of 17.
I think altogether, staff has had about 15 meetings. I'm not sure every one of them involved the study review committee, but we met with experts in the field. We met with
Tim, speak up louder.
Sorry, forgot that the microphone's over here. We met with experts in the field to help us develop some of the regulations. We met with the study review committee, of course, the planning commission. We met with economic development committee, chamber of commerce, tourism. So I think we have about 15 meetings altogether that we've attended as staff, not all of them involving the study review committee.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Manager Tice.
Let me ask a question to Manager Harrison. In your last comment, did you say just warehouses? Is that what you said, or I didn't hear the last sentence?
I don't think the sign issue was that prevalent from the notes I've seen of the meeting summaries of the study review committee. It was mostly the warehouses.
Yeah, and the sign committee, I think, was totally left out of discussion, wasn't in the book, and as far as my conversations over a period of years, Jim and I have discussed that, and I don't think from any objection to his, we're waiting for the time for it to be put in with the package of stuff rather than to be dealt with on a one-to-one basis, which is what the study review had planned on doing. And just to be quite honest, it slipped my mind. So I thought this was an easy way to add this, correct it, fix it. So that's the reason that's there, and it gets done right away without a long delay.
All right, we've had a motion and a second to update the comprehensive zoning ordinance in regard to barrel warehouses and one item of the sign ordinance. I'm going to ask our clerk to call the roll.
Magistrate Greenwell,
Yes.
Magistrate Hawkins,
Yes.
Magistrate Logsdon,
Yes.
Magistrate Tice,
Yes.
Magistrate Harrison,
No.
Magistrate Lankins,
Yes.
Magistrate Hounds,
Yes.
Magistrate Dye,
Yes.
Judge Vogel.
Yes. Motion carries 8-1. The next item here now is, again, a public hearing regarding a change in the code enforcement ordinance. Mr. Urban.
Judge, good afternoon, magistrates. Sheila, Jim Urban, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is a second reading of KOC 19-150-01. It is revisions to the code enforcement ordinance, and it relates, for the most part, to clarification in relation to the state statute regarding code enforcement boards. We did meet with the Public Safety Committee, and I believe that you may find that they are in agreement with these recommendations. On the first page in your packet, code enforcement officer, what we've done is stricken solid waste coordinator because we can enforce the solid waste ordinances, but the state statute doesn't have that in that listing. And then for the most part, you'll find that they're either officers of the law or people that have been assigned the enforcement ability for enforcement of our various codes. On page 4 is the most significant revision in item B, and that basically what we're doing is taking out, well, we're changing it to comply with the state statute, and that is that in our current regulation, we use the notice of violation as a first notice. The state statute reads very similar to what we're recommending here, and I'm going to read the whole thing. Item B is when a code enforcement officer, based upon personal observation or investigation, has reasonable cause to believe that a person has violated an ordinance, he or she, and we're striking shall issue a notice of violation and instead substituting is authorized to issue a citation. A code enforcement officer may, in lieu of immediately issuing a citation, issue a notice of violation to the violator and allowing the violator a specified period of time to remedy the violation without a fine. So again, at the discretion of the code enforcement officer, rather than immediately issuing a citation, they can issue a notice of violation. And that gives 14 days to remedy the situation without a fine. Now, the reason we're changing this is because we do have situations where it would be appropriate for us to issue a citation and fine immediately, and currently we can't do that. We have to issue this notice of violation. On the next page are some other revisions, and I think that they're reasonably simple. Item C, the person to whom the citation is issued shall respond to the citation within 14 days. And again, that gives them time to respond. It doesn't mean that they haven't been given a citation and there isn't a fine attached. Of the date of the issuance of the citation by either paying the civil fine set forth in the citation or requesting in writing a hearing before the board, that's the code board, to contest the citation. If the person fails to respond to the citation within 14 days, the person shall be deemed to have waived the right to a hearing and determination that a violation was committed and shall be considered final. A copy of the final order shall be served on the violator. So again, this allows us to issue a citation. It can be contested if the violator so chooses. And then we're striking section F, which is related to the violator. I'm going to read it this way, it's easier. Does not contest the citation within a time prescribed, and the rest of that is irrelevant in terms of what we're recommending to change in item number C. And then the final is on the next page in section 13, and it reads, the enforceable ordinances and fines, the ordinances to be enforced and the civil fines to be imposed by the board are listed on the established ordinance violation fine schedule as adopted by fiscal court. And after we consider this ordinance separately, we're going to talk about the fine schedule. So those are the revisions that we're suggesting for this code enforcement ordinance as a public hearing.
As I mentioned earlier, this is a public hearing. It's a second reading, and so anyone who has come who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to the proposed changes is going to be given an opportunity now to do so. Is there anyone who has come on that basis? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and ask the fiscal court if there is a motion to accept the proposed changes. Magistrate Hounds.
Yes, Judge, this did go before the Public Safety Committee and was brought out of committee, and so I'd like to make the recommendation that we adopt KOC 19150-01.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we adopt this new ordinance change KOC 19-150-01, making changes to the code enforcement ordinance and allowing our code enforcement officer or designated law enforcement officer to issue a fine on fines on the spot and allowing for an appeal of those fines and before the code enforcement board. So is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now will you discuss the fines?
Thank you all. Having just revised that ordinance, this is a schedule of violations. And you can see there are two sections. The first is if the violation is not contested. So a citation is issued, it comes with a fine, and the violator agrees that they are in violation of a particular regulation and they can just pay the fine. Several of these are related to existing ordinances. So the first two as an example, addressing an alarm, those fines have to be according to what is in the existing ordinance. And at this point, we aren't changing the ordinance. So those fines for addressing an alarm are again set by those ordinances. In relation to, and I do want to, last night I sent out a revision. I'm going to retract that because as I was redoing this, I included that the nuisance ordinance does actually list a minimum of $50 fine and a maximum of $500. So I had put in C ordinance, but in fact, what we're doing is recommending something that actually the Public Safety Committee had looked at, and that is to have fines that go with the citation, so it becomes less arbitrary, as opposed to saying, well, what's it going to be, 0 to 500, and picking a number. The first violation would be $150 for violation of a nuisance ordinance, and then you can see the rest of the schedule. The second section is similar, except that it is if the violator does contest and does request a public hearing in front of the code board. If they are found guilty, then the fine becomes a little bit higher. And again, some of these are set by existing ordinances, and I'm going to also point to the nuisance ordinance that last night when I sent out the proposed schedule, I had filled in C ordinance, but again, it's limited to between $50 and $500, so I put those numbers back in. So what I'm asking fiscal court to consider is just passing by a vote this fine schedule, and I'll certainly answer any questions that you might have.
Judge, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the ordinance violation fine schedule as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the fine schedule be accepted as presented. Discussion?
Judge.
Magistrate Hounds?
Just so everybody's clear, the goal and objective is not to fine people. We have to put a number for the citation. The goal is to get whatever the issue is taken care of pre-fine. But we have to put a number in there so we can continue the process. It's been several years that I was on the code enforcement board, but just because there's a fine doesn't mean there has to be one issued. I mean, we need to make sure everybody understands that. We're not trying to penalize people. We don't want people to not get something done because there's a fine associated with the violation.
Correct.
Magistrate Hawkins?
Under Section 2, I've got a couple of comments here, but under Section 2, on this one that we got in our packet today, it's worded a little bit differently than this one. I would almost like to see it say the Code Enforcement Board may waive all or a portion of the penalty at their discretion, whereas this one says may waive a portion of the penalty. As it's stated here, it doesn't say all, and I think that the Code Enforcement Board should be allowed to eliminate the penalty at all, in full, I'm saying. And then another part of this that says, if the CEB determines that such a waiver will promote compliance with the ordinance and issue. And I think that takes away part of the Code Enforcement Board's authority to have that statement in there, that they have the ability to use their discretion, but then you're saying use their discretion if they think it'll promote compliance, because we all know there are extenuating circumstances, and having the authority to waive or eliminate a portion or all of the penalty may have to do with their situation at the time, if they're in foreclosure or what have you, and not necessarily waiving that would promote compliance with the ordinance and issue. Does that make sense? So, anyways, I would just like to see that in there, where it says a portion or all, and then also eliminate the line that says such a waiver will promote compliance with the ordinance and issue.
So having worked with the Code Enforcement Board over the years, if they waive a portion, you're okay with that, you would like to see or all, they would have to find that there's no violation. And if they find that, then they can waive the entire fine. So let's say somebody comes in and says, look, they were talking about this property, I'm on this property, I was given a citation, it's not relevant. The first decision of the Code Board is, was there actually a violation of a regulation? And if they should happen to find that there was not, then they can waive the entire amount, because obviously there's no violation. So I see what your point is, but it's not necessary in my opinion, because they would find that it isn't relevant. The part about promoting compliance with the ordinance and issue is that compelling reason. Somebody comes in, they've been in the hospital, sick, out of town, whatever their financial hardship might be, the code board does have that ability to reduce the fine because that money could be used to bring in compliance. So unless there's a specific language that you recommend.
To just leave that sentence before the chart to say, the CEB may exercise their discretion to waive all or a portion of the penalty. Or the CEB may waive all or a portion of the penalty at their discretion, period.
May I interject something?
Yes.
The way the ordinance is written, the board doesn't have to impose the entire fine. The first line says, a violator may be required to pay up to the maximum penalties set forth. So that's from $1 up to $400.
Measure Greenwell.
And I was going to say that also, Stephanie. I think that gives the Code Enforcement Board the discretion to do what you're talking about by not making them pay the maximum, but by making them pay up to the maximum. So I think there's the area that you're looking for, or at least that's what I was thinking about.
Measure Die.
2 items. Jim, you may want to, we had a discussion in the meeting on the construction, demolition, and debris, why the fines jumped so from $250 to $4,000. No, construction.
Well, it's a site runoff, I think, is the one we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm
It's,
sorry, site runoff, yeah.
Construction site runoff relates to silt fence, either on a development as a whole or an individual building site. And what we've been finding is that there are violations of that. If there's a storm, they're supposed to be repaired, or sometimes during the process of building, the silt fence gets run over, it gets inundated by silt, it gets knocked over by wildlife, or in a regrading process, or whatever it might be. And the responsibility of the builder or the applicant is to keep it in working order. And so specifically, we have met with the Building Industry Association, and they recommended that we go ahead and institute fines, and on the second and third offense, just double the initial amount. So first-time offender, you get a fine, and what we're recommending here, if it's not contested, is it's $250, and then it's $500 and $1,000 for the second, and then all other offenses. Now, I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to mention this item here. We talked with Judge yesterday about this. When does the second and third offense occur? Is it on an individual site, or is it the responsibility of the builder as long as they do business in Oldham County? And our opinion is that if an applicant or builder is building multiple sites, they're only given one violation at that one rate. They know that they're supposed to be erecting silt fence and keeping it maintained. So we've added that the subsequent violations by the applicant within 12 months of the previous citation. So let me explain that. They get their initial citation for a violation on site A, and it's $250. If within 12 months, say it's 11 months, they are on another site and they have another violation, it's the second offense in the county, and it's a $500 fine. That becomes the new citation date, and they have 12 months from that date, because otherwise they could end up at month 13 violating again and go back to the first offense amount. So if they violate within any 12-month period from their previous citation, then they will get additional fines.
But there is a possibility, given a bad situation, that a person could go from offense 1 to all other offenses in the same day if they had multiple sites, correct?
And they would be second.
That'd be an unlucky day for them. But
be a bad day for them, right?
Be a bad day. Okay.
Right.
The second thing is, this is for Magistrate Hawkins. What you want to look at is, I understand what you're saying, but Mr. Carter covered it. Most of these you see on here are the ones like these. The only one that you're normally going to see, and when you're talking about a foreclosure or something like that, is going to be the nuisance.
Right.
Most of those things are are dealing with commercial and, people that are in businesses. And I would not like to see that change, because in a nuisance such as not cutting your grass, that nuisance is not just the person that lives there, it's the 6 or 7 people around them. They have to look at that. And so you're basically sharing that nuisance with the neighborhood. And I think that that's the whole point of getting the people to do what they're supposed to do in their community. So, thank you.
Right, we've had a motion and a second on accepting this firing schedule. Magistrate Logston, okay.
Jim, why are except for construction debris and construction site runoff, they're all pretty nominal fees. Why did we jump up so high on the builders in Oldham County from $250 to $4,000 and such a big jump when everybody else is just $100, $150 here or there?
Well, that's construction and demolition debris, so there's a much more egregious situation there if they have the first violation and then they continue. It's not about silt fence and runoff, it's about the construction debris. So that becomes a bigger issue because some of that debris either travels. If it's blown by the wind, it could be dangerous if it has materials in it that might be harmful if somebody stepped on them. It could be that they've got a burn pile that's illegal. There's a number of reasons why we raised that so high.
All right.
And usually the scale is much larger than a silt fence being torn down.
Sounds good.
All right, we've had a motion and a second to approve this fine schedule. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Unopposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we've been discussing this, I'd like to recognize some individuals who have come into the fiscal court chamber. Not necessarily in order of importance, but I will recognize first the mayor of LaGrange, who has come here today, and seated next to him is my wife, Mary Lee, and then some of her family members, her sister and 2 cousins, one from northern, and their wives, one from northern Kentucky and one from Connecticut. So we welcome you to Oldham County Fiscal Court today, and you have a chance to see the sausage being made, so to speak, in the community here, and we've got a great community, and we're glad you're visiting with us today. So thank you for being here. Let's go on now to the next item on the agenda, and that is the resolution for the cost of mitigation services. These are accidents that happen on our interstate or other highways, and emergency crews are called out to take care of problems. This is an opportunity for us to try to recover some of the cost of that. So, Jerry Nart, Emergency Management Director.
Yes, may it please the court. Again, I am Jerry Nart, the Director of Emergency Management. The 2 items you have, starting with the first one, is the second reading of the ordinance that would establish the court's authority to establish a rate fee for the recovery of mitigation of serious accidents and events, other events as well, that would bring expense to the county.
All right. The schedule here, we have a schedule of fees, but we're going to separate those from the ordinance.
Yes.
First thing we're going to do here is ask for approval of an ordinance to establish the ability to collect the fee. And then we'll cover the fees in just a second.
Correct. And this is the teeth, if you will, that our county would use to be able to make those claims against companies for those costs.
Right. And
we
you
have to have a
a
law in place to do that.
tentatively established a relationship with a cost recovery company.
Yes,
they're paid the 20% of what they recover.
Yes, but that's added on, yes.
Right. So it's at no cost to the county, but an opportunity for us to get back the cost of oil spills, fire departments on the interstate, other people who incur cost when there are accidents on our highways. Is there a motion to approve this? Magistrate Hounds.
Judge, I'd like to we approve ordinance KOH 19-310-114.
All right, is there a second? Magistrate, did you get that number right? 19-310-174?
174 on the back.
Okay, let's go with KOC 19-310-174.
All right.
The front and back don't match.
I've got people.
The second?
Magistrate Dow seconded.
All right, seconded. Is there any discussion on this?
I have a question.
Magistrate Logston.
And this is just on interstate, right?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, this is countywide.
Okay.
As you recall, just last week, we had some type of, I don't know, truck tipped over on I-71. It was full of debris of some kind. The interstate was closed for about 4 hours. We had a lot of people respond to that. It cost a lot of money to get the cleanup, so that's something that needs to be passed on to the insurance companies of the carriers. Anybody else have anything? All right, hearing nothing, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries 8-1. Now go ahead with the
Okay,
fee
the
schedule.
second part of this is in fact the fee schedule, and they are separated so that you don't have to go back and redo the complete ordinance each time when history happens and rates need to be adjusted to, in fact, cover expenses. And so this gives the court the authority to adjust rate fees for the mitigation without having to redo the ordinance. These fees that you see in this document are those based on national averages, and that by the company that we have entered an agreement with to do that. They are nationwide. They have about 20 or so departments actually in Kentucky as well, but these are based on national averages and what they recommend.
All right, these fees go for motor vehicle incidents, extraction from a motor vehicle, hazmat problems on the interstate, the fire investigation, just the flat-out fires. Water incidents are covered under this. Backcountry rescue is covered under this as well. So it covers everything for police, fire, anyone else.
Yes, and if I might elaborate again, just a little bit on Magistrate Logston's question, you know, as far as just the interstate, we also have the bank of the Ohio River. We also have a railroad that goes through our county. So if we would limit it to just the interstate, we would not be able to recoup things that would happen on those ways as well.
Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge. Are these fees commonly recovered by other municipalities over the United States?
Yes, sir. Of course, any entity or municipality or government can set their own fees. What you have is what the company recommended, and I've researched some of these companies, and this is what they are recommending and what they use as, you know, as in the matter of their business nationwide. We certainly could have changed them, but these are national averages.
Right, and I think how many counties in Kentucky right now have a recovery service costs?
I'm sorry, I do not have that answer, Judge.
Okay,
I
I
do
mean,
know
I
that
thought
this,
there were quite a few that.
this company itself has about 20 or so agencies that they deal with, but
In
that's
Kentucky?
just, yes, in
Right,
Kentucky.
that's what I was getting at,
Yes.
yeah. Magistrate Hawkins?
When we were talking about this before, it was mentioned that we would maybe exclude those with an Oldham County driver's license. And so I'm wondering if that made it anywhere. And in addition, how would this affect, say, like school bus drivers in the county?
Okay, so the first part, by direction of the judge to me as the emergency management director, you know, he can say, this is not for Oldham County citizens. I recommend we don't make it a law that says we can't, because there could very well be an Oldham County resident who causes hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cleanup to the county. By saying that we're not going to impose this on any Oldham County's citizens, I think ties our hands in those particular instances. Yes, granted, the majority would be on the interstate because that's just where they happen statistically. I'm not sure I understand about the school bus driver.
If there, would any of these fees be implemented on, say, a public servant, say a school bus driver, police officer, other drivers in the county that are servicing the county?
Well, it's our discretion on who we want to make a claim against. We certainly, again, by direction, cannot make a claim against those individuals.
Who's our? Could you?
I'm sorry?
You said it's our discretion?
Yes, it's the county's discretion. I guess it's the chief operating officer of the government. I work for him. By a directive of a memo or whatever it might be, he can say, emergency management director, thou shalt not impose these upon these types of individuals without first consulting me and/or the court.
We have to look at this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think we can make a generalized rule as to how we will handle it. If somebody from Oldham County is involved in a incident that causes us to expend a lot of money, well, we have to look at that. We just can't give a free pass to local people because they might do something. Everybody that is operating on the highway is supposed to have insurance, including the Board of Education. So if one of their employees creates an issue, we're entitled to go after that insurance and not just eat it. That's why they buy the insurance to begin with. You know.
Judge, I see no differences, and you were right. They're required to have insurance. There was an accident not too long ago where both parties involved in the accident had the same insurance company. And so now one person, well, both cars were totaled, but the one person's car is totaled. He said, when do I get my car repaired? Same insurance company, and they're having to fight it out. So the insurance companies are what are predominantly going to pay these fees. It's not going to be pushed off to the individual. It's not that anybody's trying to go after anybody for malice, but these are fees that we can, and other areas are collecting, and if we can subsidize the cost of the police department, EMS, or fire by some of these fees, then we should be doing it. I mean, I think we're missing the boat if we don't.
Well, insurance companies are in business to pay claims, and on a sound financial basis. People think, well, they don't want to pay any claims. Well, they actually do pay claims, but it's based on experience, investment, and overhead. Those three legs are the stool of any insurance company, or what they stand on, and they expect to pay claims. They're in business. The rates are set to pay claims. Magistrate Dye.
There's been several comments made that it seems that people think, and Mr. Nart brought this out, these are not just car accidents. These can be other things, okay? And I've heard one person say in the past that, well, it's going to run my insurance up. Well, I don't know if claiming all of this would run up insurance rates or not. I really don't know. I don't know what the figures will be. But if it does, I'd rather spread the cost of a large, like you said, a $100,000 hazmat problem. I'd rather spread that $100,000 over an insurance company's customer base versus the 60,000 people that live in Oldham County. I think that the cost would be much less.
Well, the likelihood of anything happening here that's going to raise rates is probably, not possible. I mean, these are nationally set things, and something happened here, it just couldn't have that much impact. But it's important to have not impact to the insurance company per se, but impact to us as a community, yes. Magistrate Logston.
Well, first of all, everybody knows I'm 100% behind the police and the fire. I'm 100% behind you.
We very much know that, sir.
This is just my feelings on this. I'd rather you raise my rates as a tax, figure out how many things it's going to have to be, and raise my rates, than hit me for the second time on something I'm already paying tax on. I-71, I totally get that, because those are out-of-state people mainly, and if we have to do something, I'm totally for that. But I just hate to be double taxed, and that's the way I look at this. And I understand you all don't, and that's fine. That's why we're up here. We all have a difference of agreement. We're not going to agree on 100% of the time, but that's just the way I look at it. I look at it as a double fee because I'm already paying taxes to cover that. Just like if an ambulance comes and gets me, I got to pay $1,000, but still I pay an ambulance tax. So that's just and I agree, I'm 100% behind you all, and I'd be 100% behind this if it's just on I-71 or somewhere where you're going to get people who are in and out of the state and cause a hazmat problem, which is, I understand, that could be thousands and thousands of dollars, and we should recoup that money. But for somebody in Oldham County that would have if a bus crashes on 71, God forbidding, and they have a diesel fuel leak, and you have to go in there and clean that up, is Oldham County School gonna get sued for that diesel fuel cleanup? I mean, that's just what I'm looking at. So, and that's just my opinion. Again, I'm 100% behind the police and the fire, so this has nothing to do with them.
We know yours, sir, and last time I checked, the country lets you have your opinion.
Magistrate Hounds.
Have you seen the Safe Driver commercial?
There's nothing free in this
don't mess with
world.
the discount. I mean, if you're being a safe driver, and I know things happen, then none of this will ever apply to you. And I think, let's not make too much of it. I mean, it's not like Mr. Nart's new job is going to be to run point on collecting fees for motor vehicle accidents or hazmats. Knock on wood, I've been on the hazmat team now for 11 or 12 years, and we've made, I don't want to say how many responses on 71, but not very many. You know, we're just trying to protect ourselves for the future.
I don't really see that many claims coming here. It's just we're protected against an unusual expense of some
And I get
proportion. Not car accidents, things, the smaller things aren't going to cause this. This would be one or two things a year maybe trigger.
Well, I understand, but I mean, with the ambulance tax, I'm sure when we started paying an ambulance tax at one time, there wasn't a fee associated when they came and got you $1,000, whatever it costs for them to take you to the hospital. So
That's unfortunately changed with Medicare and Medicaid, and
Well, I understand.
we have no control over that. I'd like to make the motion that we pass the resolution.
I just want to respond to that because a lot of people feel that the ambulance came to my house, why do I have a fee? The county provides the service. We set up the facilities and we provide the ambulances. We have the service ready for you if you need it. And the cost of the ambulance tax is to provide that service for everybody if they need it. But if you are someone who must access that service, then you do have to pay more. But we have all paid to have the service available for you to begin with. So if you don't need it, you don't have to pay any more. But if you do access it, you have to pay an additional amount, which is, I would say, 99% of the time covered by insurance or Medicare or Medicaid. But it's the same way with this. I mean, we provide this service, we provide emergency services in the county, but if you're someone that creates a big problem, I think the fire department can act, your house burns down, they send you a bill or not? They just ignore it? Okay, that's part of it. But you can have to pay a little more if you're someone that creates a problem in this circumstance. We hope you won't, and you probably, most of us won't. But, okay, go ahead.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on these fees? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Huh?
We didn't get to say no.
Was there a no on that? Okay, one no. Motion carries 8-1. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Court.
All right, now we're going to talk about the flood mitigation program. And kind of fearful our visitors today are going to think all we talk about is how we can collect money. And, it's really not the way. And when you came in here, you saw our sign above the door. It says, "We the people." We are the people. All of us are the people. All right, go ahead. Jim Urban, Becky Zachline.
Thank you, Judge. And thank you, members of the Fiscal Court and Sheila. Once again, the application period for the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant that has been announced, and the application period opens on October 1st. We have applied for this grant 5 times with success, as you see in the chart that was provided in application history. To date, 24 properties have either been mitigated against flooding or are being mitigated against flooding. And I recognize that that number does not reconcile with the number of properties that are listed, but it's complicated explanation for that. Trust me, it's 24. but we'd like to ask the court to give permission to the judge to sign the resolution to apply for the 2019 flood mitigation assistance grant application, and to sign all documents related to that if the grant is awarded.
I'd like to make that motion, Judge, since I think all 24 properties are in my district.
I'll second it.
I moved and seconded that I be authorized to sign for the flood mitigation assistance grants, and that would permit property owners in the first district to elevate their houses
It's
and
also
get, pardon?
Hawkins, too. It's also Hawkins.
Oh, you have
There's
some in
one
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's one that is not. right.
Okay, all right, sorry about that.
Very bottom of the
You're a
list.
long way from the river, you know, but you've got one, okay.
We're by creeks.
All right, by a creek, okay. Get their houses up in the air and get out of the flooding business, okay?
I think there are other stipulations where other than people that are on the river can apply for this, so I encourage them to seek out the grant if they can qualify for it.
Applicants are property owners that carry flood mitigation or national flood insurance policies, have active national flood insurance policies, and have suffered flood loss claims are eligible to apply.
All right. Okay, we've had a motion and a second on this. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 8-1.
Before you leave, Becky, can you tell us about how much money that we have received in the county for these grants thus far? Might surprise you, the number.
6.1 million.
Okay.
6.1 million?
Yes,
Correct.
and that's money that is channeled through the county. Part of that money pays for my time, Jim's time, staff time in managing the projects.
Right. Thank you very, very much.
Next item on the agenda is our KYT supplemental agreement for the Allen Lane Underpass. Belinda Demas can review this with us.
Good afternoon. This is supplemental agreement number 3 with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for the Allen Lane Underpass. The agreement provides an additional $30,000 in federal SLO funds for the project with a required local match of $7,500. The Transportation Cabinet asked us to program these funds for the underpass project in case any additional design issues come up as the design phase and plan set are finalized. KYTC will take over this project for the remaining right-of-way, utility, and construction phases, and we are asking Fiscal Court to allow Judge Vogel to sign the agreement.
All right.
Move.
All right, moved and seconded, I believe,
Second.
here. Is there any discussion about it? Pretty much a slam dunk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? On the right side of the dais, any noes down there? So, all the noes have come from down on this end so far here today, haven't they?
Judge, I abstain from a conflict of interest.
One abstention?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm just teasing, all right.
I got a question though,
Yes, sir.
Judge. This is for Allen Lane, correct?
Yes,
So how far along we are on the other one? Are we
What other one?
393?
We are eagerly awaiting the legislature to come back in a session at the beginning of 2020, and we hope that the overtures that we've made, including Judge Vogel going to Frankfurt and talking to the Transportation Cabinet Secretary and the Governor's Office, to put money in the biennium spending plan. There are currently completed construction plans, all the right-of-way has been acquired, and of course, we've constructed about a third of that project.
Right.
Just beyond, from I-71 to just beyond Commerce Parkway. So everything is ready to go except for the money.
So you think we could ask him for this one too, since we're having that discussion?
this is a different billfold.
I know.
This is a separate pot of money. This is through SLO funding, and money is in place. This is just additional funds for the design. So
Trying to help you out.
Appreciate that. As far as the Allen Lane project goes, there are only 3 properties, 2 that have a little bit of complication to acquire, and then that's what these revisions might be for the design work. And then we're ready to go with the next phases, which is utility relocation and then construction.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further discussion on this? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I already took a vote? Yeah, all right. All right, I guess we had 9-0 on that? 8-0, you abstained, okay, thank you. Now we'll talk about what Ralph Matheson has come to hear about, and that's the Goshen Lane drainage improvements.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Jim Silliman?
magistrates.
Yeah, right.
Jim Silliman, County Engineer. So you should recall a few weeks ago, statements of qualifications were received and opened by the Fiscal Court for the Goshen Hills Phase 1 Drainage Improvements Project for final design of this project. Those were reviewed by a selection committee, and it was decided to enter in contract negotiations with Jacoby Toombs and Lands, one of the 5 submitters. They're consulting engineers and land surveyors. After discussion of scope, final scope, and again, contract negotiations, you have the contract before you to enter into the final design contract. It's in the amount of $20,000, not to exceed, so it would be billed hourly with the maximum amount of $20,000. And I would like to ask the court's approval to enter into this contract and begin, again, the final design phase for this project.
I'd like to make that motion, Judge. Second.
Moved and seconded that we enter into this contract with JTL for Goshen Hills Drainage Improvements, Phase 1. Mike Harris is here from JTL. Thank you for coming, Mike. Does anybody have any questions for Mike about the project? Brent Likens?
I have one comment to make, Judge. We met to, in the selection committee and of course chose Jacoby Toombs and Lance. But we also decided that we would make one last stitch effort to the landowner that's on the, in the vicinity that we want to maybe do a retention basin, and maybe we can convince them that this is a properly designed detention basin would completely empty and give them their land back 99.9% of the time, which would make this whole process work much better. So we're going to try to contact the property owner hand in hand with Jacoby and maybe come up with a better way to develop this plan.
Right. I refer you to Jim here, Silliman. We have made that contact already, and he has some information on the.
We did. Okay. I hadn't shared that with you yet. We did very recently. The judge and myself, okay. Kevin Nuss, talked to the landowner. She was very cooperative in understanding her concerns of the use of the land itself, wants it to remain as crops. So she did give some caveats to how we can potentially allow some water to back up on the property without actually disturbing the actual ground. So we'll work with Jacoby Toombs and Lands. Myself and Derek Shade in the engineering department were out there yesterday looking at the ditch and the layout on how we can incorporate that and utilize the existing ditch and area to back up on either side of the road and utilize that as some detention. So I really think it was a very good conversation that while it won't allow us to create a large-scale basin like we might have ideally looked for, it did offer us something more than I think we thought we had. So
I appreciate that. I didn't know that. That's very good community goodwill, and I'm sure we will give them credit for it if we're able to utilize their property. So thank you very much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion here on this? All right, I believe we've had a motion in a second, correct? So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir. All right, it's 4:46. Let's take about a 8-minute break. Does everybody agree?
346. 346.
Excuse me, 3:46. Let's try to be back here at 5 to 4. All right. The motion, we go back into session, please. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda here will be our dump truck bid award, correct? We have
Yes.
that? All right, Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you, Judge. The road committee met last Friday in a special call meeting so that we could go ahead and get this project going, and by a vote of 2-1, the road committee decided to award the contract to Ewell Truck Sales in the amount of $135,393.04 per unit.
All right,
Second.
I didn't make the motion.
Oh, I thought you made the motion.
make a motion on that, and I guess you do.
I'll make that motion.
All right. The second?
Second.
All right, that we go ahead and buy this truck from Ewell Truck Sales. And all in favor, please, what? All right, we're buying 2 trucks from Ewell Truck Sales.
Yes, at 130, I read the, yes,
$135,393.4 cents
each,
per unit.
yes.
Right. Well, it's not .4, it's .04 cents per unit. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Pardon, discussion? Okay, go ahead.
Do you remember what they cost last year? I'm just trying to get a handle.
We did not get a single axle last year, we got a tandem. And I don't remember 2 years ago what we got. We got them from Ewell Truck Sales, but I don't remember the amount.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
2? All right, any abstentions? All right, so motion carries 7-2. Next,
Also, Judge, at the road committee meeting, we met and discussed the performance bond release, and Jim Silliman, I don't know where he went,
Yeah.
he's out in the hallway. We have many bond releases. First one is for Poplar Woods Section 3. The second one is for Poplar Woods Section 4A. And I see Mr. Silliman making his way to the podium, and I'll let him walk us through all of these.
all right.
Pardon me for the delay, we're getting moving on that design project, so.
Okay. Well,
Magistrate
Poplar
Greenwell.
Woods Section 3 and 4A, what, do you have anything to say about it?
I didn't know if you wanted me to discuss all 5 of these at once and then have a single approval, or if we want to
Well,
go individually, or the court pleases.
Go ahead, let's take all 4 at once here.
Okay, for all 5. There are, so the performance bond for Poplar Woods Section 3A and performance bond for 4A, and there's another performance bond for Grand Oaks Section 2A. Again, those are the pavement and curb being up to county standards and having been recently paved, so releasing the bonds on that work to the contractor. The erosion control bond release would be for, of course, the erosion control and sediment protection at the Burger King in Crestwood. They've also met all their final design requirements, and with the exception of the one inlet that was covered, they can pull that and be done. So we were recommending release of the bond on that project also. Item number 4, the memorandum for record. That was where in Poplar Woods, 4 roads prior had been approved and taken into the county road system. And upon further review, we discovered that the lengths were inaccurate, and we just wanted to issue a memo to correct those lengths.
All right, so we're talking about the first 5 items under committee reports and recommendations here, correct? We're not talking about, are we talking about Grand Oaks, or all 6, I guess?
Well,
2, 3, 4,
I've
5, and 6.
discussed items 2 through 6, yes.
Okay, 2 through 6, all
There's
right.
3 roadway
Yeah,
performance
I got
bonds.
you. Does anybody have any concern about any of these? All right, is there a motion that we approve all of these?
So move.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion, abstentions? I'm learning my lesson here. All in favor? Okay, we passed.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you. All right, Building Maintenance Committee report, Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge. We have met in committee and voted.
Microphone.
We have met in committee and voted to bring before the court for their approval our recommendation that we approve the contract to Bravura Corporation. They are a professional services architectural firm for the work additions to be done at the John Black Civic Center.
All right, this would be for some plans that would give us an idea of the cost of increasing the seating capacity there, and maybe an enlargement of the outdoor patio area, and also looking at some other circulation things, and also possibly a standalone gymnasium there. So, all right, we got a motion second. Any discussion on that?
The one thing I wanted to ask is a couple of things. Have we already decided that we're going forward with the John Black atrium addition? Or we're just going to be looking at it? And are we, go ahead, you started to say something, Judge, and I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, my opinion is that we're trying to find out what this would cost.
Oh, okay, and that was my one question.
Yeah.
The other question is, I have some concerns about all of the property and all the things that we're talking about doing on this piece of property, the potential of the gym, the additional space, which will require additional parking, et cetera, and et cetera. And then we also have coming forward, hopefully one of these days, the new 393 reroute across the front. So, and that affects the parking. So I hope that when we look at all of this, that we take in all of those aspects so that, number one, we do what we want to do, and then make sure that we have the facility, the land, to do whatever we decide to do. Because I think that can be real important if we don't look at that to begin with. That's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item here is the generator bid award, Magistrate Hounds.
Yes, thank you, Judge. We've been working on this project to install an emergency backup generator at the road department, and I'd like to make the recommendation that we purchase a generator from EverPower for $23,600. It's a 100 kW diesel emergency standby generator.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We purchased this generator, bid not to exceed $23,600, or the total price, that is. Is there any further discussion on it?
One other thing, Judge, after the generator is set, this is just for the generator itself. There will be some additional cost, minor cost involved in the switching gear and things like that to automatically switch over when the generator comes on. And also, we're going to try to put that on under the same maintenance contract that the other generators in the county are under.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next, has to do with workforce readiness. It'd be under Human Resources, Magistrate Logston.
Yes, Judge. In front of you all, you'll see the Oldham County Workforce Readiness Program here. We met this morning and decided that we would like to give $12,500 for 2019 and $12,500 for 2020, for a total of $25,000. We think this is a good program. It gets people ready that may not have the advantages everybody else has, gets them ready to go out in the workforce and help our community out.
I'll second, Judge.
Moved and seconded. The support be provided for the Oldham County Community Foundation's Workforce Readiness Project. That project involves LaGrange, the Arvin Center, and the employers in Buckner. And the purpose of the project is to try to help, let's say, people develop work skills, learn how to work, learn how, believe it or not, some people don't really know how to get a job, how to go to work, how to present themselves. And the Arvin Center is willing to train people, and employers in Buckner are willing to try to move them along as well. So is there any further discussion on this? Magistrate Dye.
Yes, Judge. On this, having worked in a vocational center many years ago, I have a little knowledge about this particular topic. I'm okay with the 12,500, but I think next year we need to see some data showing that we got that not necessarily we got our money's worth, but to make sure that the program did accomplish its stated goals. And the other thing is, you mentioned LaGrange, Buckner. This is open to anyone in Oldham County, isn't it?
Yes. The reason I cited those two locations is that most of our work in that nature would be in that area. I mean, there isn't really, that's kind of the concentration. Commerce Parkway
But they would
be included.
But people in other parts of the county would have to find their own way there, right? Their own transportation.
Right. Well, I think they've identified most of the people that need help are coming out of the LaGrange area, possibly out of our jail, possibly out of the state prison. But anybody in the county, I think, would be open to the project. But the LaGrange part of the transportation provided by the city of LaGrange would be coming on LaGrange buses from
Right,
here.
because in post-secondary education, vocational education is usually the second choice after college, and not everyone is college-bound or wants to go to college. They want to work with their hands. So I just want to make sure that we are going to get our money's worth next year, see if it's a good program, and that everyone, that this is advertised to everyone in the county, not just a specific geographic area.
Magistrate Hawkins?
And I wanted to reinforce that this is a 3-year project, so the 25,000 total is over 3 years, but will be distributed half this year, half next year, and then none the third year. So it's a 3-year project.
Right, it's actually a 3-year project, so I think your Magistrate Dye is asking for some degree of accountability in 12 months, a progress report, where are we, what's been accomplished to this point. Right.
We don't have 25 people register, 35 people register, and then we only have 4 graduates.
Well, they won't probably graduate in 4 years.
Well,
3-year program, I mean, in 1 year. But,
okay.
Magistrate,
Okay, we start with 25, and after a year, we got 4 left. Okay.
Magistrate Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Judge. I still think it'd be a good idea to invite the principal of the Arvin Center to come and make a presentation to us, or for us to do a tour down there, because the Arvin Center is not the vocational school. It's far from it. They're not learning how to cut a board and change spark plugs. Jim Silliman's 2 sons are both in that program, and it's dynamite. I mean, they're teaching aerospace type things, pre-nursing program, very high level of technology.
Right.
But it doesn't, and students are bussed in from all the schools in the county by the school board. They don't have to provide their own transportation.
Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge, again. We had voted to donate $25,000 to them. It comes out of the Grants Committee's funding, and because that is a pretty large sum for our Grants Committee, which is, we only have $75,000, I think, in that pot of money, that we would give them half this year and half next year.
Right.
That's the reason that was our thinking this morning.
The reason I mentioned the Arvin Center is that it says in the program development presentation that Matt Watkins, from the principal there, is going to hold the primary leadership role and oversee the development and ongoing modification of curriculum, provide facilities, and coordinate among the subject matter experts involved in this multi-year project. So maybe they'll be bringing people into the Arvin Center to talk about certain things. I don't know exactly how it's going to be executed, but it's through the auspices of the Arvin Center leadership there. And so, okay. Somebody else have, did I see a hand? Magistrate Greenwell?
Thank you, Judge. Magistrate Likens, you explained how we were going to fund this when we awarded this Is that amount in the, what we awarded, and is this in the budget?
It's in the budget for this year, and we will have to put it in as part of our budget for next year.
Okay.
The 2020.
Okay.
Any further comments?
But it's part of our grants budget, our 75K per year grants budget.
Okay.
It'll come out of that.
All right, thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item here has to do with our benefits renewal, and Tina Schaaf is here.
Good afternoon. Before you all this afternoon is our renewal for next year, for 2020. In summary, we have no increase in our premiums for any of the plans, which is awesome. We did change the buy-up plan for the dental a little bit to have a higher annual maximum of $1,500 instead of $1,000. But all premiums stay the same. We're proposing to keep the health savings account contributions, all plan aspects the same. We are going into an agreement with Humana for total health. So that's an agreement that we can get additional points off for wellness next renewal. So we did this a few years ago and we got quite a bit off of our premium point-wise for the renewal for participation in the wellness.
Judge, the Human Resources met, and we agreed to approve this, to accept the benefit renewal for 2020 as presented, and allow you to sign the paperwork renewing the, for the relating to renewal, so.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we accept the Humana renewal offer, which is static, they don't change, other than offering to go up higher on our dental coverage with a buy-up. I feel very want to thank our employees for the good participation we've had. Many people have participated in the different levels of trying to improve our status within the company, protect our health, improve our health, do things that are positive in relation to the insurance company and themselves, and it's come out to that we're able to hold our rate, and we think that's good. We've been fortunate over the years to, I think we've been with Humana, perhaps pretty much 10 years, haven't we? It's been, and we've had some years with no increases, other years with increases, but our increases haven't averaged out to be any more than 4% a year, I don't believe, over the 10-year period. So persistence is important with an insurance company because they know your record. They want to be paid. They want to have more money come in than they're paying out and giving them enough to make a profit. And if you try to jump to another company, you may get a lower rate in the short run, but it doesn't really work out very long because they too are going to find out what your history is from the past, what their current experience is, and they're going to have the same thing. So if there are reasons to change, one of them would be terrible service, but I believe we've gotten good service from Humana, our broker. The claims seem to be going well. We don't have any complaints from people that I'm aware of on how their complaints are being handled or their claims are being handled. So breaking even, so to speak, not having an increase is fortunate. So I'd like to thank all employees for the awareness they're showing on trying to play the games, so to speak, that we've offered. The 360 and now this new program, which was called what?
Well, it's the total health agreement.
Total health, you're right. I mean, you got to do some things. You got to hit some right buttons to stay in the program, but Tina's done a good job of keeping us on track with that. As should I.
You didn't get rid of Doctor on Demand, did you?
I'm sorry?
You didn't get rid of Doctor on Demand, did you?
No, that's a service you can get through Humana, yes.
I'm going to tell a real quick story. My family practice doctor retired and went to teaching. Of course, didn't tell me about it. I've been supposed to. But anyway, so I've got a maintenance drug I have to take for my thyroid gland. Called up to get my medicine renewed, and they said, well, he's not with us anymore. And I said, well, okay, well, I still need the medicine. They said, well, we've put you up with this other doctor, and she can see you in 5 to 6 weeks. I said, it's a daily dosage. They said, well, we can't do anything about that. I said, well, I'm glad I don't need insulin. So I went to Doctor on Demand, $49, 6 minutes later, after I had to file some paperwork, saw the doctor on my computer, could have done it on the phone, and she asked some questions, had my medical history there from Humana, and she gave me the script and 5 refills, $49 sitting in my office. Now, that's the way medical care should work. I don't think you could do heart surgery like that, but if you haven't tried it, try it out.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you, Judge. We'd just like to reinforce what you said. I remember when we first started this high-deductible health plan, and it wasn't very popular. People resisted it a lot, but we did it in an effort to control our cost. And they bought into it, and they performed like they're supposed to, and now it's a fact. And so it's all worked out well. We've held our rates down, and that's what the plan was all along, 12 years ago. So.
Right, when we began self-insuring.
Yes.
A portion of our thing. Anybody else? Magistrate Hounds?
The total health that replaces the 360 program?
It doesn't replace it, no.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry,
We still
I'm
have
confused.
Argo 365.
Okay.
The total health, Humana saw that we were looking around during the renewal time, so they offered us a rate hold, and then to keep us, they also said they would put the total health agreement in place, which is a cap on based on our experience of what our starting renewal rate will be. That's a cap. And then we can also take off the additional wellness points on top of that, and it's over 3 years. So they're trying to keep us. So we've got a rate hold and an agreement for the next 3 years to be capped and get the option to get more points off for wellness.
Okay.
All right, and so did we have a motion on this from Magistrate Logson? All right, a second. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on this? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Judge?
Yes, sir.
The conversation we had just a minute ago about the Community Foundation Workforce Development and giving money for grant this year and a grant next year, I'm confused that we can do that because we couldn't purchase the generator until this year because it was going to take too long for delivery, and that's over. The purchase would have happened in 2018, 2019, but they would have been delivered in 2019, 2020. So I don't know how we can commit to the $12,500 if it's outside of the budget period. And if that doesn't fall in the same, Melissa's not here. If it doesn't fall in the same category, then I understand that, but I'm confused.
Well, I think it was probably, let's say, intentional. In other words, the committee is intended to do this, recommend this next year. We're not committed to it next year until we vote on it. But they just said that they expect to come back with it again next year as a 2-year program. I don't think that's an obligation. I think it's an anticipation, announced anticipation of what the committee expects to do. So
As long as the ordinance as long as the motion reflects that, then I'm okay, and I'm seeing a shaking of a head, so I don't know that it does.
Who's shaking their head?
Yeah, the motion was for $12,500 for 2019 and $12,500 for 2020 for the 3-year project. So it did specify that.
And I guess I interpret that as a commitment. That's
what was said.
Right.
So.
Judge,
Mr. Carter, you want to make a comment on that?
It's not a contract.
It's a gift.
The proposal to pay $12,500 this year and $12,500 next year is not a contractual obligation. It's
Not binding.
not binding.
Okay.
Thank you.
And my interpretation was, is we're in the 1920 budget, and we usually do our grants sometime the first of the year, in January, February. So what Brent just said is that the 12.5, which is half of the 25, will be subtracted from the 75 that we haven't done yet this year. So I think that automatically falls into it, doesn't it? Or is that what you were asking?
I understood it to mean that we were going across fiscal years, that the commitment was across fiscal years, not calendar years.
That's not what he just told me, but you know. And I just shouldn't probably even be in
We're
discussion.
still out lights here.
But
I think I took the committee, I took the meaning of what was said as a intention to bring this back again next year. They asked originally for $25,000. We cut that in half, so give half now. We think we'll come back next year with more. But as you heard Mr. Carter say, the intention, as stated, is not an obligation.
Okay.
They have to be voted on again next year.
One other clarification, there's not 75,000 in the balance. Some's already been paid out this year. That's what you.
That's the budget. That's the budget.
That's the budgeted amount, 75,000.
Right.
Other monies have been paid out.
Right, 30,000's been paid.
Yeah. So the 12.5 comes off the current balance, which you said, what is it, Judge?
45.
It's 45
45
remaining.
minus the 12.5.
Yeah, so this 12.5 comes out, and the Revere contract comes out of there too, doesn't it?
Not review a contract, no.
Oh, okay.
Review a contract doesn't come out of grants.
Okay, all right, okay, all right.
You got me, Chris.
That comes out of the Parks Department. All right, now we're at, let's see here, police action, or personnel action, sorry. Same difference.
We have some personal actions this afternoon. We have, for the police department, all of this is for the police department. We have 2 resignations. Dustin Dean, that would be effective August 30th, and Chris Herbstreth, effective September 15th. Do you want to do all of this at once, or?
No, motion to accept these resignations.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. New hire.
Right, we have a new hire. We have a 5-year lateral, Dwayne Durrett at $24.50 per hour. That's his base hourly rate, and that's effective the 30th of September.
So moved.
All right, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The last one is a 5-year lateral. He's actually coming to us under contract as a retired, rehired. He's retired from J-Town last year in December he retired. So he'll be coming back as a 5-year lateral per the contract that's attached, and that's effective October 1st pending approval from retirement.
So moved.
Motion moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
There's no benefits for Mr. Meredith, correct?
Right, it's in, everything's in the contract.
All right, thank you.
All in favor? Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Judge, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
It says pending approval from the Kentucky Retirement, and we had this similar thing with the school security officers. Did that end up happening with all 3 of
It
those?
did. Yes,
Okay.
everyone's in place for, the last 3 were in place September 1st. And then I actually got an email today saying that this one's probably good to go. I'll get the actual
Okay.
confirmation tomorrow.
All right.
All right, now I have a couple of appointments to the library board I'd like to recommend. The first appointment is for David Hutchinson. David has been here faithfully from 2 o'clock until right now. To reappoint David to the Library Board for a term ending October 1st, 2023. David has been functioning as the treasurer of the Library Board and has done a tremendous job, and happy to make his, suggest his reappointment. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of David continuing, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate your service very much. Also like to reappoint to the board of the library Jennifer Proud for a term also to expire on October 1st, 2022. Jennifer right now is serving as chairman of the board of the library.
Like to make that,
23, I'm sorry. Sorry.
like to make that motion, Judge?
Second?
Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And we're looking forward to David and Jennifer leading the way for some constructive addition to the library system over the next 4 years. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Also like to reappoint now to the, this is the first time appointment, to the Pee Wee Valley Fire Protection District Board, Todd Jones, for a term that would expire at the end of June in 2021. This is to fulfill the unexpired term of Joe McWilliams. Joe's personal circumstances such that he had to leave the board. So Todd Jones has been, I'm suggesting his replacement. Todd's a very successful business owner in Louisville here, and I believe he'll do an excellent job. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I want exception because I'm on the board.
All right. All right, motion carries 7-1 with one abstention. No, 8-0 with one abstention. Correct? Yeah, all right. Getting a little punch drunk here at the end of the meeting, I think. We're about ready to wind things up. Any more public comment here today? Jerry Nard has a comment, I guess.
Judge, I come to you at this point in time as a member of the Board of Directors for the Veterans Memorial Park of Kentucky. This Friday, I'm sure Magistrate Harrison would mention the fact that this Friday is National POW MIA Day. As in conjunction with that, the Park Board is doing a little thing at the South Oldham football game that evening. The park is located on the campus of South Oldham, and they were doing a fundraiser during that football game. And I just wanted to call attention to anyone who might be willing to go to help out the park.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and go through our magistrates, see if anybody has any final thoughts for the day. Magistrate Logston? All right, Magistrate Dye?
Yes, Judge, just wanted to mention this is a National Recovery Month. For those watching today, or you may have someone in your family that suffers from some form of addiction. This is to let people know that there is resources out there to help their loved ones or themselves if they recognize the problem. And this is when that is celebrated during this being the Recovery Month. Thank you.
Asia Hawkins?
Nothing today, Judge. Thank you.
Asia Hounds?
Nothing, sir.
Asia Greenwell?
Thank you, Judge. I wanted to report on the fact that Highway 22 is finally being repaved. They're having to do a lot of construction and rebuild the road first, so they said that would take 2 to 3 weeks, and then they'll start paving it. So from Ballersville to, I think Abbott Lane is going to be part of the process. So I just ask everybody's patience because they are working at night from 6 until 6 in the morning. So that's a good thing, but still you need to be careful in those early morning hours when it's really dark. Second thing, I'd just like to ask everyone if they wouldn't mind praying for rain. We've got a lot of people in this county that make their living based on the amount of rainfall we get, and right now, we need some help, so.
Good idea. Magistrate Harrison.
Thank you, Judge. We've already heard that today is Constitution Day and 17th through the 23rd is Constitution Week. September the 18th is Air National Guard Day. Jerry mentioned the National POW/MIA Recognition Day. On September 29th, it's Gold Star Mother's Day. And then a non-military thing I saw in the paper where October 10th, the History Center is sponsoring a cruise on the Ohio River. And the guest speaker will be the historian from the Army Corps of Engineers. And that could be interesting, since we have so much land on the river. I'm not sure how far upstream they're going. I'd like for them to go to Westport, but they probably won't. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Magistrate Tice.
I have nothing. Thank you.
All right. Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge. I work construction work, and I pray for no rain. So I hope it rains on Master Greenwell's farm and stays off of my projects.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Mr. Carter, would you have anything you'd like to add today here to the good of the community? You said enough? Well, all right. Okay, well, I don't have too much more of myself. I can comment on the Air National Guard. I've been in that too, and I've been in the Army Reserve as well. But Air National Guard was great service, and my daughter's in that now, and I'm very proud of her participating in that. I don't think you can ever be sorry for serving your country, and so we recognize all of those patriots. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion adjourned.
I'm gonna catch him on this right here.